welcome to our show today. The name of this show is Your Choices. It's going to be the first episode. We are wonderful worldwide educators, and we are focused on supporting the all-natural environment that supports all of us. We have worldwide projects for everyone, especially the children, as a focus with the natural environment, becoming more aware and making better choices that make sense for all of us as we are all on this planet Earth surviving and to do a real purpose. We have the New School Homeschool. We have a Nations United Universal University that we are building and creating. It is starting first off online. We have worldwide Skype calls. We have projects in Africa. We have friends worldwide. And we are also involved in planting trees and tree projects with those around the world. You can find us on wonderfulworldwideeducators.com and see what we are doing for the natural environment, you and everyone. Thank you for joining our show today, and we will hear some real experiences from those that were in the corporation and new individuals like Marjorie Klemp and Harry Klemp of Joni's Corporation. So we have a few guests today that will be coming on to share their real experiences, and I will be hosting this show. This show can be shared around on Facebook, on Twitter, and email to let people know that they can make better choices, and you may become more aware of taplining and how you are being taplined by others, and you can have a better life for yourself. Again, we are wonderful worldwide educators, and I'm going to introduce now Duane, the great writer, who is presenting the new you and the new presentation for all, and a real worldwide wake-up for everyone to become more aware, have real guidance, and real education. Duane is here in Huntington Beach for all. Go ahead, Mr. Duane.
Hello, Kelsey. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do. I hear you fine.
Okay. Yes, I tried to get on Skype, but they wanted me to sign up, and I haven't had an account for a long time. So, yes, we're going to have a little fun here today, just letting people know what's going on this planet Earth. There's a lot going on that most people don't see. And so we have a few friends on today. That's Sandy Staehling and Claudette Stockman and Ava from Germany, who were in the corporation, Joan Klemp's corporation, for quite a while. And since Paul left, there's been a big transition taking place. I write about this in New Book 9, The Real Story. It's a fun adventure. For most people, they really don't understand it, but that's their choice. All we can do is present it. This is why I called what I do the new presentation, simply because it's simply a presentation, and starting off with my real side experiences with the real guides, Rebazar and Paul. And so here we are in the new nowness of the all is. This is the best time for everyone to wake up through all of creation and eventually recognize the real universes and have a real life, more so than just their personal physical life, because this world is being heavily damaged. So we're sharing just a very small part of what's taking place here. So is Sandy on? Is she there?
Yes, I am.
There she is. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. And Sandy, maybe you can tell before we get into the Marjorie Klemp passing over, a little bit of your history with the corporation and how you found us. How you found me and the new you, etc., and some of your experiences, because you were in the corporation 50 years, and that was necessary for you to prepare for this. And so here you are today. Yes, welcome, and it's so nice that you've stepped up. So you want to tell your part, and then we'll get into the Marjorie Klemp passing over. Go ahead.
Yes, sure. Well, as Duane said, I was in the corporation for 50 years, almost to the day, And how I found the New UU Corporation was one night I had a dream this year. Actually, the dream was about a month, it would have been in March. And during that time in the dream, I had received a new word, and the word was new you. And I thought, boy, that's kind of different. Although it was similar to the hue, I'm looking at it saying, is this really my word? Now, those who are in the corporation or were in the corporation know that you receive secret words. And, of course, so you don't tell anybody this word or it nullifies it, so I just kept singing it. Well, I received another dream, and in the dream I received a beautiful letter, and is somebody saying something? Okay. I received a beautiful letter, and on it had beautiful flowers around it. It had scalped edges. It had bluebirds on it, and it said in the letter that there was a new master. Well, there are a lot of, quote, masters. We now call them real guides, as in Rebazar Tars, Paul Twitchell, Fubi Quant, Laetzi, Shamusi Tabriz, just to name a few. And so I thought, well, now they claim that Harry Klemp was, the leader in Joni's Corporation. Well, I thought, now who could this be? I mean, so I went to the internet, and I thought, just for the heck of it, let me look up New You. And what came up was Duane Hepner, the great writer, and the worldwideeducators.com, wonderful worldwideeducators.com, and I read what was presented. There's a lot of stuff. There's so many things that are presented. But what I read, I ran downstairs to tell my husband that he had to read what I had found. And he read it, and it was like, wow. We were not happy during quite a few years in the corporation, as it got very rigid, very strict. You were told you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that, and you had to take class after class after class, and we never really went anywhere because the same stuff was presented, only maybe with more strict guidelines what you should and should not do. And it was very cumbersome. And so when we found this new UU, we were astounded. It was like light. It was a revelation. It was wonderful. And so we did sign up for the new UU, and we're very thankful for it. Singing this new UU, you can meet Rebazar Tars, and he will take you on adventures and tell you things. Anything you want to know, you can ask him. So that's, I had experiences during my time in the corporation, but, the experiences, most of them, about 95% of them, were with Rebazar or Paul Twitchell or Fubi Quant, and maybe one of the other real guides every now and then. But those were the main ones that I had experiences with. So it was a good transition to go over to the new UU. When I first heard about Eckankar, the corporation, Paul Twitchell was still the head of it, and it was how I found Eckankar was my dad, who I'd really not known ever. My mother divorced him when I was about 3 months old, so I never had any contact with him, never really even saw him. One day when I was 21, he sent me a book In My Soul I Am Free, which was by Paul Twitchell, and he said, read this. I think this guy's onto something. And, of course, I did, and it was like, oh, my gosh, I got to call the office, send me everything. 2 weeks later, my father had passed over, so I had no more contact with him other than a couple of dreams with him, and as to what it felt like when he passed over. But I had sent away for some pictures. One was Rebazar Tars, the first one. When I received that picture in the mail, I just broke down in tears. I don't know where they all came from because they flowed for about 2 weeks. I mean, I remember sitting in the sandbox with the kids, and I was still crying, and then it let up after a while, and I was able to have real experiences with him. And so that's kind of how I got into Eckankar, which I had been in the corporation for, like Duane said, 50 years. And that's about my story.
How about our switch? When we
Sandy, yes. Yeah, I too was back there with Paul in 1970, and knew Patty Simpson, Archie Hurst, Helen Beard, etc., all the people there years prior. And this is Book 2, A Journey to Real Freedom. I explain how I came into this life and was raised on the real side by the boys, or Rebazar, I call them, etc. And from past life, that's Book 1, from then till now, being prepared for this lifetime. Paul and I were to come into this life and do what we're to do, and Paul was to be first. There's a lot more to this. It's in the books, and especially Book 9. After Paul left, and there were situations there started the takeover. And so it's a very interesting adventure. It's all fine. There's no good or bad about it. It's just an adventure up till now. And so, yes, so we come to this position. And again, I was there too until 2001. When Paul gave me the Rod of Power, which is now the New Wave is. That became so in 2007 because of all the transitions I went through. And anyone can talk to, go meet Paul and Rebazar on the real side. And the real guides has stepped back from the corporation, but just like your experiences, they were preparing you for this. They see who is ready. Not everybody is. Many of these people, they want to just follow somebody. And especially with what Joni has done now with the worshiping and prayer, she's got them to focus on the Kalam God and the tap lining, and she's in allegiance with the reptilian agenda on the earth here, and also into the astral worlds where she, with her band of witches, goes around and tap lines people. So it's been quite an adventure. And you've experienced this too. Now, you had this one experience. Let's go to that one first, where you had Joni and Harry on the real side, and they were trying to do funny things. You want to tell about that?
Sure. It was one night I had this dream, and in the dream I was standing there, and it seemed like Harry swooped down from the air, and he had put a tap line on my upper arm. And it had like a suction on it that was very strong. And I looked at him. There was no recognition of him acknowledging my look. And I said, get that thing off of me. Now, in the meantime, Joni was standing a ways back and up a little bit in the air from Harry. And I repeated, get that thing off of me. And finally, she called Harry, and they took off, and I started singing the New You, and I was able to remove the tap line without any trouble. So that was my experience in a nutshell there of what they try to do to you with the tap lines. And even after I had left and didn't have any, basically, on me, they tried to reattach them. So I wasn't too happy about that.
Over the years, can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Yes, okay. The phone went off there for a minute. Over the years, yes, we've had many Skypes, which Kelsey and others have recorded, and people stepping forward and sharing their experiences. We had one with a young lady that was with us for a while, and she was very severely attacked and with the hue, etc., because the hue is taken over with the reptilians. It has been for the longest time. It doesn't work anymore except as a contact to be taplined by the reptilians, and most people don't know this. The hue, the the amen, all these things, they're all taken over. The only reality, true reality that is the real connection with the real universes and the real guides is the new you. And so the true reality, the all is, life is, as you might say, has updated itself to now so that people have the advantage to wake up all the way to where all these other systems, religion, politics, spiritual things, etc., they're not working anymore. They're all tap lines. So that's one of many experiences. The show today is about is your choices, and I knew Marjorie Klemp. This was the original wife of Harold Klemp. We call him Harry now because he's a funny guy. He's been funny for a lot of years. It's his choice. But I remember when Patty Simpson in the early 70s had the first center down in Laguna Beach, Harold and Marjorie would come in once in a while because they lived in Costa Mesa. I knew Harold pretty well, and I used to go to the when Darwin was around, the Menlo Park office up there, and that's when Harold was doing the printing in the back room, and I would go up there and talk to Harold sometimes because a friend of mine and I were doing some building up there. I was a general contractor for many years, so a lot of experiences through the corporation. Again, it's all fine. I suggest people to read New Book 9. You'll get a little more overview, and do the New You sessions, and go to the real site and see for yourself. So what I did is I asked a couple of the girls here, which one is Sandy and the other one is Claudette, to go to the real side as witnesses to see what's going on, because Marjorie passed away. In other words, she simply passed over into the astral world, and not a good spot either for her because of what's taking place, and the deal that she made with Joni and Harold while she was here. It looked good here, but on the real side now she has to deal with it, plus a lot of other people she's responsible for. And so we'll go with your experiences first, and then we'll bring in Claudette Stockman. And when you went to the real side, you did the new you, and you had several experiences. If I remember right, it was about 3 or more, and you want to go ahead and start to share those, and we'll kind of go over those one at a time as you did the new you and you had your experience. Sandy, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was, as Duane had asked, I was doing to see where Margie was, I guess, after I have some experiences with her after she had passed over, and she was stated as being an 8th initiate in Eckankar, which is the initiation of God realization in the corporation, a very high level in Eckankar, and a promise that is made to all Ekkas is that they would be taken to the plane of their initiation, escorted personally by Harry Klemp. Now, I had been in Eckankar for many years, as I had said. I had talked and listened to Margie at many seminars. She was very popular, with countless Ekkas always gathered around her. You know, we were all hoping for her words of wisdom. Anything she could impart to us would be taken to heart, because at one time, of course, as Duane said, she was married to Harold Klemp, and I actually was very curious to see if I could have a few words with her after her passing, and if she truly was being escorted to the 8th plane by Harold Klemp himself, who is the head of Eckankar under Joni Klemp. The first experience I had was as I sat down to do the new you, and I did put my focus on Margie. I immediately observed her on what Eckus would call the inner planes, and I saw that she was dressed in a teal shirtwaist dress. She had a belt to match. Her hair was pulled back, and she looked pretty good, actually, despite the fact that she had been looking all around. She actually didn't give me much recognition at all, and it was obvious she wouldn't be talking to me because I couldn't get enough of her attention. It was just a gesture that she knew I was there. And I had said to myself, as I came out of vision, I really want more information. And that was the first experience I had with her.
Did you say, Sandy, that when you saw her, she was kind of looking around?
She was looking everywhere. And I was trying to get her attention and talking to her, but it was to no avail. She was just turning her head every which way and up, trying to figure out where she was, I believe.
Exactly. That's what was being demonstrated to you. When we have the real side experiences, many times what is taking place is a demonstration, and yes, all of a sudden she's passed over and she doesn't know where she's at. Because again, here she thought she had some kind of recognition or awareness according to the corporation, okay, and the guidelines and schedule and what was laid down and said and whatever, but she really doesn't. And as we go along here, and again, this is not a put down or a criticism. We're just trying to show people what's really going on, because as they hold on to their ideas and attitudes from here, they bring them over to the next position, and for the most part, most people don't recognize where they're at, so we're going to help people show them how to recognize and bypass all these restrictions if they'll simply pay attention. But again, most people like their arrogance and attitudes, and Marjorie has hers, and she has a right to have them. We're just observing. So again, as you look at the experience, at first it's going to hit your personal mind, but as you continually consider it and look at it, all of a sudden, intuitively, you start to see, wow, she doesn't know where she's at. It's not what she thought it would be, right? So again, go ahead to the next one.
Sure, and since I wanted more information, I sat down right away, and I did the new you again, and again I put my focus on Marjorie, and I immediately observed her on what, again, the Eckus would call the inner planes. I was in front of her again, but this time she didn't look so good. Her hair was down almost to her shoulders, and it looked thin, straggly, greasy. As I peered closer at her, I noticed that on her face, she had like brown crusty marks and what people nowadays call skin tags. Her face was all mottled with this, and she was standing in this experience. She was standing in a small room, and it was a dark, drab, and dingy room with a high ceiling. It appeared to be like an old-fashioned kitchen that at one time was white, but now the room was dismal, and it had a grayish cast. There was like a grayish cast over everything, and even Marjorie looked dull. I couldn't detect. I was looking for light from her and again, recognition, but that grayish cast really pervaded the room, and covered her too, like I said. And this was so different from the Margie that we saw at the seminars, who was all smiles and what seemed full of light and talkative, and this just was so different. I tried to get her to talk to me again, but she was still busy looking everywhere, like she still didn't know where she was. And then I came out of that experience.
Yes, again, it's this is what happens to many people as they cross over or pass over from here. They drop the physical body, and their real awareness is still operating the next body, which is the astral body, and plus you have the causal and the mental and etheric bodies that are usually unseen or unaware of, but for the most part housed in the astral body because of the personal senses that the physical body has with the astral body. And this is known as the gray area, okay? It's an area where, just like you're seeing, she doesn't know where she's at. It's like an undecided area. Now, she can decide whatever she wants, and she can decide to call on the real guides, but at first, she's just trying to get herself together to see where she's at, because, again, the idea of the corporation, according to Joni and Harry, is that, the master will be there and escort you, because we all need guidance, and as we go across, and etc. Just like when we were with our parents, they guided us around, and so until we can recognize what's going on. But here again, Marjorie, like many people, have become the know-it-alls. In other words, they already know what is what, they already know what life is, etc. Well, they think they do, but all of a sudden, now they're facing it, and they've got a lot more to figure out. So, yes, thank you, Sandy. Go ahead to the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, and okay, and following the second New UU session, I did a third one because I still wanted more information. And this time I asked Rebazar to, if I could get more information about Margie. Immediately, I found myself, I was in front of her again, but this time she was standing outside, and it was night. I observed that on her right side was a rather subdued, heavy female reptilian. She actually looked like she was a squatting, overstuffed frog, and she had her elbow firmly clasped to Margie's, and she was just standing there like that with Margie. However, on Margie's right side, there was a humongous or a massive female reptilian, and I was looking at her. Oh, she had just awful green eyes with these snake eye slits. And she noticed that I was looking at her, and so she bent down, and she had her teeth snapping at me. And this is Marjorie. I knew immediately that Marjorie was being escorted away with these two reptilians. And Harold was nowhere in sight. Only the two reptilians were around her, and it appeared to look like she had no choice but to go with them. I mean, I guess she did have a choice if she would have called on the real guides, but, she didn't. And so this was very interesting to me because being, as Margie was an eighth initiate, and all the promises that were made, you would think that, Harry would come and escort her away, but that didn't happen at all. And she looked like she really didn't know where she was again. So that was the end of that experience.
Wow, thank you very much. That's terrific. And as I requested this, because again, you girls are the great witnesses, and this can provide something for people to wake up to, or whatever. Most people, I would say, though they're not going to so-called believe it, that this is so, but anyone can check this out for themselves. And it's not about Marjorie so much. It's just that these are situations that are happening now, and it's happening to a lot of people. And a lot of people in the corporation and other institutions and groups and whatever around the world, organizations, what have you, are getting cancers and what have you, constantly, and the corporation, especially the higher initiates, the more fake initiations you get with the corporation, the more tap lines you get. And yes, Marjorie's in the dark, like Harry. Harry's really in the dark. He is so far into the darkness. And yes, these two reptilians, they're going to escort her to Harry and Joni in the darkness, because that's where you might say their main office or headquarters is. It's really in the lower dark astral realm. And anybody can see this for themselves, but again, there are curtains drawn also, and there's a really good show put on. And this is just not in the Joni's Corporation. It's all over this planet Earth. It's so infected. And so let's go on to the next person. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this, Sandy?
Well, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So is Kelsey, is Claudia here? Is Claudette Stockman here?
Yes.
Yes, Claudia's here.
Yes. I had similar experience like Sandy had, and since we're on the topic of the passing or translation of Marjorie, I was in Eckankar brief background for 40 years and achieved the 6th initiation, but was kept in that position for 14 years. And finally I wrote and said, well, look, when's the 7th going to happen? I've been here for a long time, and what am I doing wrong? And got no response. And so I looked on the inner to see what was going on and found some answers, which caused me to make an exit from Eckankar. But in the last few years, I had the opportunity to see or listen to many of the talks that Marjorie gave. She was very good at giving historical references, and one of her best talks that I thought was really good was about Confucius and his life and so on and so forth. History was her favorite subject. Because I attended a lot of her lectures, I'm going to say more than 7, she became used to seeing me in the audience, and I was always an eager beaver when it came to the question and answer period. So she couldn't miss me. She knew who I was. So when Duane passed the information that she had translated, he said, why don't you look her up and see what's going on? I said, okay. So I did a New You session, which is simply just getting quiet. I go in my bedroom and get quiet, sit on the bed and relax. And I do 3 New Yous specifically. And then I ask what information is present available about Marjorie. And instantly I was in her presence. She was in, and there are two incidences here. The first one is I was in her presence. She was sort of in a gray area or gray room, but she had light coming from her, or, emitted out of her being. And I was very happy to see that. But I noticed that the light was kind of dull. It would be like a 40-watt light bulb compared to a 200-watt light bulb. But I kind of ignored that and said, well, must be me. Couldn't be her, because she was an ace initiate and had achieved much and knew a lot of historical data about the Masters. And at that time, that's what was presented to the students. As I was looking at her, I saw her surrounded by at least 500 people in a circle around here, maybe 20 deep. And I was at the back of the audience, and so I was kind of waving my hand, trying to get her attention. And these people were all reaching for her. And as I looked at her, I saw that she was kind of trying to protect herself from so many people trying to touch her. Finally, I worked my way up to stand in front of her, and I said, "Oh, Marjorie, it's so good to see you. How are you?" And she didn't answer me, but I noticed she recognized me because I was always in her face with questions. And I said, "Well, you translated over. I bet you feel good now, right?" And she didn't answer. She just kind of bobbed her head a little bit. She looked about 43 years old, or 45, somewhere in that age group. But, you know, you could tell she was tired. I said, "I know you're tired from the translation, and you have to have some rest. But the good news is there's no pain. The pain is gone when you translate because your physical body has been dropped." So I knew that she was experiencing that, which was a relief. But the actual capability to know where you are requires focus and concentration. And she looked exhausted, and so I said, "Well, I see you're tired. Go ahead and rest, and maybe we can talk again later." I said, "I wish you all the best." And just before I finished, I said, "Oh, by the way, have you seen Reba's card or Paul?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, you can ask them any questions you want, and you can find out information about this whole process." And she said, "No, I'm too tired right now. I don't want to." And that was the end of that. So another night, I did a second New Youth session to again contact her to see how she was doing. In this second New Youth session, again, we were in the room where she was, and again, the light had dimmed considerably that was emanating from her. She did have some light, but it was very dim. It wasn't as brilliant. If you stand out in the noonday sun, oh my goodness, it's light, it's airy, it's brilliant. You see that. But this is dull and not sparkling. This is dull. So again, she was surrounded by these 500 people, and they were all reaching for her. And I could hear what they were saying, and they kept asking her why, and I could hear that clearly, why. And she kept kind of like sheltering herself, and she looked older now. She went from like being in her early 40s to her late 40s, early 50s. And she seemed weak and feeble. Then, at the end, I asked her, I said, "You sure you don't want to go see Rivazar? You can ask Rivazar anything." I said, "Have you?" She said, "Oh, I read Duane's book." I said, "You have read Duane's books?" She said, "Yes, I read them." And I said, "Well, would you like to talk to Duane? Maybe y'all could, uncover some facts or something." She said, "No, I don't care to." And I was taken aback by that, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I understand. You're tired. And translation is a bit of a challenge." And that's when she started being overwhelmed by more people finding her and recognizing her and trying to touch her. One thing that I did notice, all these people were tap-lined. You could see them all struggling with that situation. I had been tap-lined by Marjorie, and I found out afterwards, after she had translated, that was so, because I considered her hero worship. And, I thought she was just so smart and everything, and wow, she's an atheist, she's married to Harold. Wow, that's really must be awesome to live that life. Wow. But in the long run, I became aware of the agreement she made with Harold and Joan. She traded her freedom, her spiritual, I guess you could say freedom, or her freedom from taplining for an agreement to be taken care of for the rest of her life. So those like us who sometimes sit in the back of the audience when there's a seminar, some of us ask those questions. Well, what's the deal? How come this is happening? And a lot of people notice things that they don't want to admit to it or recognize it. And I noticed that Joan was the new wife brought in, and Marjorie was escorted out. Now, what I gathered from what I could receive from the information was that Marjorie agreed to go to California and be quiet and not say anything about Harold and Joan, not a thing, although she knew what was going on. Joan came in and I guess you could say mesmerized Harold, and finally got Marjorie escorted out of the Eckankar organization. But she wasn't technically for the rest of the group. The people in Eckankar just knew that, oh, well, Harry married Joan and divorced Marjorie. These things happen. Yes, they do. They do happen. But there's a lot of backstory. And if you find the backstory, you go, that's not quite the way it should go. And you have to make a decision to either stay or remove yourself. I chose to leave. Too much was happening, and I got the chance in the early beginning of my investigation to communicate with Paul Twitchell, and what he presented was pure, clean, clear. But what Harold started doing was muddying the waters, and Darwin also muddied the waters, but that's another story. Anyway, that's about it for Marjorie. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. That was fun. Yes, you girls are wonderful. Thank you for stepping up and having the courage to say something. And again, this is not a criticism to anybody. It is just an experience that we're having here with what we're doing. This is just one of the things that we're involved in as wonderful worldwide educators. What we're really here for is just to simply share something real and wonderful. And in the meantime, we're also providing a warning for people about what's really going on. So it's more than just what people think or want. There's a bigger picture here. So Claudia and I, for several days, went over these experiences. And as she was telling me her experience with this, and I already know what's going on. I already knew that Marjorie had made a deal a long time ago. Because Joni really forced that to be so, okay? Because, again, it's kind of like you see in the movies where, the mafia moves in and, you'll be taken care of, but this is what you're going to do. And so, again, the end result is more than obvious, but a lot of people don't want to see it, and that's fine. They have the right to decide whatever they want. So in the experience, as Claudia and I went over this at first, and I'm looking at it, and she's telling me her experience from her view, and I'm looking through her eyes as she's doing this and describing it. And so in the first experience, Claudia comes in, and she sees, she sees Marjorie there on the real side in this particular area. And at first, it hits the personal self in a particular way. So it takes a little bit of time to really kind of get used to it. It's like anything. It's like a new place you go to or whatever, or a new restaurant. And, it takes a few minutes to kind of really absorb and kind of see what's going on. And all of a sudden, after a few times, you see it. Well, the light, I went over this with Claudia. The light that she saw was not the real light of the true reality life is. It was a reflective light in creation, which is the knowledge that Marjorie had accumulated. One of the exercises, the spiritual exercise that Paul gave was look for the light, listen for the sound. But the light that he was referring to at that time was the astral light, which is knowledge. And see, Marjorie had collected a lot of knowledge, so she had the light of knowledge. That's all she had. She did not have the recognition of the true reality, because this is not focused in the corporation. What is focused upon is the personality and the control of Harry and Joni in a subliminal way. But it looks good on the surface, just like what's going on here with the governments of the world and the chemtrails and the Wi-Fi and just everything else. It all looks good, but it's really not that. And so as people pass over to the next position, wherever their consciousness is and whatever awareness they have of that, well, again, Claudie's experiencing this, and Marjorie still, again, there's some error to where, she's going to decide, you might say. She's going to decide what to do. She won't even ask Rebazar, Paul, and Claudie's made the offer here, but she's would rather stay tied to what she's decided, and by the very fact of that, because of the deal she made, again, the people that were around her were all those people like Claudette that looked to her, respected her, and you might say, we'll just use the idea, believed in her, okay, as something, because she projected this knowledge out. She studied, she projected this knowledge out. And these are the so-called masters. They just study, and all of a sudden they're masters of something, and which is fine. Everybody has the right to do and be whatever they want. But the reason that the crowd was sitting there saying why is that Marjorie could have stepped up and done something real as she was, providing what she did, but instead she went along with the program of especially Joni. Joni is the one that controls the corporation, not Harry. Harry's just a puppet. He submitted to her. That's why he's all taplined by her, etc. This was all taken care of a long time ago. Even while Darwin was here, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that people didn't see. That was a takeover too. Very interesting. So this would make a great Netflix series. Maybe it will someday. But again, the people are asking why, because they see now that she let them down. She could have let them know what was really going on so that they could at least have a better position of survival and understanding. But they accepted what she said, and that was their choice too. So again, we all make choices. And like we do when we're on Facebook or whatever, I constantly refer to Rebazar and Paul. Go to the real side, talk to them, see what's going on. But most of these people in the corporation and other things and religions, they just think, well, I'll just, if I go there or if I go to the inner, I will talk to Harry, I'll ask him, or I'll ask Jesus or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. So then by that very fact, you'll stay trapped and tapline in creation, because the new nowness of the is has nothing to do, the whole of life has nothing to do with all these things that have taken place. The days of masters and gurus are gone. They really are. Even though you still see them here, they are just simply like apparitions is all they are. So with Claudie's experience, again, Marjorie had the opportunity to step up, but instead she made the deal to where she was personally taken care of, bought off. And so what she did is she gave lip service to the audiences that listened to her, and they related to her in a particular way because she was the wife of the so-called master, and it all looked good, etc. And it's very interesting with the worldwide seminar coming up in Minnesota right now. I would say that, and we've looked for this too, there's really not much PR about Marjorie because it's kind of hush-hush in the background. It's kind of like Darwin when Joni did the takeover with Harry and pushed Darwin aside because he was not cooperating according to what Joni wanted, so she brought Harold in as the next puppet. And so it's kind of like with Marjorie here. All of a sudden she's like one of the stars, but then again she's really not, because Harry is the star. That's the promotion. So a lot is going on here, a lot to figure out. But again, it's a choice everybody makes. But for the most part, most people like their one-dimensional, glaze-over, self-convinced attitude that they know what life is about. They know that all this is fine and whatever. Well, fine. You can have it. Anybody can have whatever they want, but all deception shows up. So again, we're just simply warning people, giving people the advantage to use the new you and step up and wake up for themselves and compare what's going on. It's not about me. I'm just simply doing my part in presenting this. So are these people. So are Sandy and Kelsey and Henry and Val. Val is here too. He will tell some of his experiences because he was in the corporation 40 years and finally found the new you. Again, the real guides pick the individuals that are ready, that have the courage to step up. So yes, thank you, Claudie. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Other than it was a most enlightening and informative experience. Having been in Eckankar long enough to see the difference, it's very hard to let go of your hero worship sometimes and accept the reality of that a person may have made a choice that you wouldn't agree with. Marjorie, wanted comfortability in her old age retirement, and so that was offered to her, and she accepted it. But through her, every time she contacted an Eckas, they were tap lines. And tap lining is the most serious and extremely, I'm going to say, sad experience, because the reptilians take advantage of you because you don't know, and you cannot compare what you do know with what you're seeing. And so it leaves you a bit flustered and frustrated. The thing is, the light that you see, like the sun shining, that is coming out of those who have the ability to recognize what they see, gives you a certain amount of, I'm going to say, strength and courage, because then you can make the decision you need to make. It's not easy deciding to leave something that was a part of your life for so long and completely believing and having, quote-unquote, faith in it. But there comes a point in time when you recognize what's going on, and it's just like growing up. When you're 5 years old, you see things different. But when you're 18 years old, it's different. And when you're 45 years old, it's way different again. So we have these opportunities. This is just a learning situation. And if we take advantage of this information, we can make better for ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Claudie. We've gone through a lot here, and Claudie, one day she woke up and she wanted to find something real, and she did, and so we finally met after all her, you might say, searching through the corporation and for a little while in Dunami, etc., which Darwin had started originally, and it's all okay. It all adds up, and when Claudie first came in, I could see her right away as very special, and so we've gone on a lot of adventures, and there's more adventures with Claudie. We've made 3 other videos on the Queen of Orion, etc. So we have gone galactic too. So there's a lot for people to experience and understand. And as they do the new you for themselves, they will start to have their own experiences and decide to earn their way, step up, and get out of creation altogether and get into the real universes. But that's a big decision. Yes, thank you so much, Claudie. Let's go to Val here. Val, you want to tell a little bit about some of your experiences or just a little overview of, because you were in the corporation 40 years, and all of a sudden you found the new you, and here you are today, Val.
Thank you, Duane, and thank you, everybody, for sharing your experiences. Thank you, Sandy and Claudie. Yes, I was in the corporation for 40 years, and I knew Harold and Margie down in Northern California. They used to live in Mountain View, And at that time, Harold was working at the office there, the international office in Menlo Park. He was teaching some classes. Margie was teaching some classes, and I attended some of those. While you were talking, I remember this experience I had with them, and it may relate to something we were discussing with tap lines. This is a time when we were doing a lot of postering. I remember a fellow friend of mine and I were going out and doing putting up flyers and posters for intro talks in the area, and we'd have a route. We'd go around and hit laundromats and restaurants and coffee shops and anywhere we could find a bulletin board. So we would actually we went to Harold's and Margie's house to pick up the flyers in Mountain View, and then we spent the day going around and putting up these flyers. And at the end of the day, we came back and we reported back, and I remember saying this. I said, well, that's the last time I'm going to do that again, because it really took a lot out of me. Now, this is a time when Harold, I know, Duane, you talked about in the beginning, Harold was, he was like an upright, or he was basically, given a chance to demonstrate, something of a benefit for everybody. So he was not the master at that time. But so I don't know if tap lines existed then or if they were going on, but I sure felt a heaviness when I came back and I said, this is the last time I'm going to do this again. It may have been me, but I just wanted to share that experience. But at any rate, I did share Sandy and Claudia's experience with a number of or corporation friends of mine recently, and it's interesting the response I got, and you would expect a response. They basically call me, I'd say liar, or they said I was making this up. One of the Risas said, why don't you just let this alone, let her be in peace, rest in peace. So it's interesting the responses I did get, because they were not willing to look at somebody's personal experience. And they talk about this when people come into these intro talks that the corporation have. I remember they're very open about, well, whatever you have, we're not going to put you down. We're not going to discriminate or judge. We'll be open about these experiences. We've heard them before, basically. And that was true in those days, but now things are getting very real, and the experiences that some of us have on the real side, when they don't coincide with some of the beliefs that the corporation members have, well, then the experiences are not valid. Suddenly they're not valid, and you don't have freedom to even talk about this sort of thing. Move away from us and do not talk to us anymore. So I just put it out there for some of the former friends of mine in the corporation, Margie's passing and Sandy and Claudia's experience with that. And their basic response was that it's not true. So that's their free will to do that, but it's just interesting how they do set limits and restrictions to personal experiences, which they talk about as being very valuable. But my 40 years in the corporation was valuable, and I was fine during the time I was in there. That when I heard Duane, the great writer, talk on Skype, one day. It just made so much sense, and so it was so real, so simple, so simply put that there was no question about what was real and where I should be moving on into. So I didn't have any trouble dropping the corporation at that time, although, like I said, I was fine with it. I was going along just like everybody else, but once I heard something that really made sense, well, then there was no question to move on. So thank you for the time to share.
Yes, thank you, Val. We don't want the show to go too long, and so because we will have more episodes, this is just the first one here, and we will go over many subjects. So Ava, is Ava on? Are you there, Ava?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ava. Let's see how Ava's on Skype from Germany, and Ava and I have been together over 5 years on Skype every day, basically for 8 hours on and off. Because of her time change, which is about 9 hours. And Ava she's an artist and a computer artist, and she did many things with the corporation until Joni told one of the Reeses for her to stop doing that because, again, Joni wants all the attention on Harry and selling his pictures and not the real guides, etc. But eventually she met the new you. She met me, and here we are. I brought her into the new wave. And Ava has someone that she knew that recently passed away also, because the higher initiates and any of them, they're all Tapline, and it's really showing up left and right. They're getting cancers, and they're being eliminated because the cancers start in the astral body and then come into the physical body. And the reptilians are the real vampires. And once they have you Taplined, they start sucking the energy out of you, etc., until there's nothing left. And then you'll come back in future lifetimes, and you'll be encased in new bodies with them again, because you have an agreement there, and it's mainly unconscious. So Ava has a little experience here to tell about someone that she knew. Go ahead, Ava.
Yeah, I know many Iranian here over the internet, and this was starting in 2006, and there was auch a girl. I had a very good connection to her, and she was translating many books from Harry and from Paul, the last time mostly from Harry, from English to Farsi, and I know that this was always very secret in Iran, and so she was coming out to Europe now, and I know this. She was breaking up the contact to me when I was making not more the A2s, and then I was coming to Duane with the NU, and now today I saw the news. She got liver cancer, and with 49 she has to translate, and so you see what is always happened. And I was hearing this from so many from the corporation members that they had get cancer. I think it's better to sing the new you.
Thank you, Ava. You're wonderful. We're at about, Kelsey, we're at about 2 hours right now. I don't know how much show time we have, but we can continue this on. So you want to kind of wrap it up and tell the world what we're doing, and we'll talk later on this when we get into episode 2. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. You can share this radio show across Facebook, your emails, Twitter, social media. This radio show will also be on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Kelsey Lynn Brown, and you will be able to view the video there and read more titles and articles by Duane the Great Writer on wonderfulworldwideeducators.com. You can also purchase the new books on wonderfulworldwideeducators.com, which were referenced in this radio show, specifically New Books 2 and New Books 9. And we are doing worldwide projects for the all-natural environment and the children, and you can find more out about that on the nufoundation.club. Learn about our New Trees projects and our Greenbelt projects, our water projects, and everything we are doing for the all-natural environment and how you can get involved with us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.